Jake Morrison stared at the coffee in his cup and wondered how it had gotten cold again. He sat in the communications room of Kepler Station, listening to the endless static of deep space. 3 years he had been here, watching empty screens and hearing nothing but cosmic background noise. The assignment was supposed to be important. Monitor the neutral zone between human space and alien territory. Watch for signs of trouble. Report anything unusual. Nothing unusual ever happened. The station orbited a gas giant called Titan 7, far from any trade routes or colonies. Jake shared the outpost with 12 other people, and most days felt like they were the only humans in this corner of the galaxy. Commander Lisa Park ran the station with military precision, but even she seemed bored most of the time. The closest excitement they got was when supply ships arrived every 3 months. Jake took another sip of cold coffee and made a face. The recycling systems on the station worked fine, but they could not make decent coffee. He was about to get up and make a fresh pot when his console started beeping. The proximity alarm meant something big had just dropped out of hyperspace nearby. Jake's hands moved across his controls, checking sensors and communication channels. A ship had appeared about 2,000 kilometers away, but something was wrong with it. The vessel was tumbling slowly, and its energy signature was weak and unstable. Commander Park to communications. Came Lisa's voice over the intercom. Contact confirmed, Jake replied, his training taking over. Unknown vessel. Appears to be in distress. No response to standard hails. What class of ship? Jake studied his screens more carefully. The vessel was unlike anything in his database. It was sleek and organic-looking, almost grown rather than built. Strange symbols covered its hull, glowing faintly even through the damage it had taken. Unknown design, man. Definitely not human or Kethver. Get me a visual. The main screen filled with an image of the damaged ship. Parts of its hull were blackened and torn, as if something had tried to burn it from the inside out. Jake noticed that the scorch marks did not look like normal weapon damage. They seemed to absorb light, creating dark patches that hurt to look at directly. That's a new one, Lisa said as she entered the communications room. Any life signs? Scanning now. Jake ran a full sensor sweep. I'm getting one life form. Very weak. Looks like the ship's life support is failing, Lisa nodded. Prep the docking bay. We're bringing them in. Ma'am, first contact protocols require... I know the protocols, Morrison, but I'm not letting someone die in space while we fill out paperwork. She activated the station-wide comm. All hands, we have a rescue situation. Unknown alien vessel in distress. Medical team to docking bay 2. Jake guided the damaged ship into the station's docking bay using tractor beams. The vessel barely fit, and he had to be careful not to cause more damage to its failing systems. As soon as the bay doors closed and atmosphere was restored, he grabbed his gear and headed down to meet their unexpected visitor. Dr. Helen Ross was already there with her medical kit when Jake arrived at the docking bay. The alien ship sat in the middle of the space like a wounded bird, steam rising from its damaged hull. Strange symbols pulsed weakly along its sides, and Jake felt an odd sensation looking at them, as if he should recognize the patterns, but could not quite remember where he had seen them before. How do we get inside? Lisa asked. Jake approached the ship carefully. As he got closer, part of the hull simply faded away, creating an opening just wide enough for a person to walk through. Well, that answers that question. The interior of the ship was dark except for a few emergency lights. The air smelled of ozone and something else Jake could not identify. He followed a narrow corridor toward what he hoped was the cockpit, calling out in standard galactic trade language that few species actually spoke. He found her collapsed over what looked like a control console. She was humanoid, but clearly not human. Her skin was pale blue-gray, and she had large eyes that were currently closed. She wore a form-fitting uniform that seemed to be made of the same material as her ship. Jake could not tell if she was breathing. "Found the pilot," he called back to the others. "Bringing her out now." Jake carefully lifted the alien from her chair. She was lighter than he expected, and her skin felt cool to the touch. As he carried her toward the ship's entrance, her eyes opened suddenly. They were large and violet, with flecks of silver that seemed to catch the light. She looked directly at Jake's uniform, focusing on the small eagle patch on his collar. Her eyes went wide, and she struggled weakly in his arms. She said something in a language Jake had never heard, but her tone was one of amazement and disbelief. "It's okay," Jake said in trade language. "We're here to help." The alien ignored his words and reached up with one shaking hand to touch the eagle emblem on his uniform. The moment her finger made contact with the patch, she went completely still. Her violet eyes locked onto his, and she spoke one word in perfect, unaccented English: "Guardian." Then she collapsed back into unconsciousness, leaving Jake staring down at her in complete confusion. How did she know English? Why had she reacted to his uniform patch like that? And what did she mean by calling him a guardian? "Doctor." Ross took the alien from Jake's arms as soon as they reached the medical bay. "Her vital signs are stable but weak," the doctor reported. "I'll need time to figure out her physiology before I can treat her properly." Lisa stood next to Jake, both of them watching through the medical bay window as doctor. Ross worked. Did she really speak English? The commander asked. One word, but yes, clear as anything. Jake touched the eagle patch on his collar. It was just standard Terran Defense Coalition insignia, worn by thousands of soldiers across human space. Nothing special about it at all. What did she call you again? Guardian. Jake frowned. But I have no idea what that means. The alien girl stirred on the medical table, her eyes opening briefly to look around the room. When she saw Jake through the window, she tried to sit up, pointing at his uniform and speaking rapidly in her own language. Dr. Ross gently pushed her back down, but her eyes never left Jake. "She seems to know you," Lisa observed. "That's impossible. I've never seen her species before, let alone met her personally." But even as Jake said it, he felt that strange sense of recognition again. Something about the symbols on her ship, something about the way she had looked at his uniform patch. It was like trying to remember a dream that faded more each time he grasped for it. The alien settled back onto the medical table, but her violet eyes remained fixed on Jake through the window. She said something else in her language, and this time Jake could have sworn he almost understood what she meant. Whatever was happening here, Jake had the feeling it was going to change everything. Jake could not sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw those violet eyes staring at him through the medical bay window. 3 days had passed since they brought the alien aboard, and she still refused to speak to anyone except him. Dr. Ross had managed to stabilize her condition, but the girl would only communicate when Jake was in the room. He made his way to the medical bay for the 4th time that day. The alien sat up in her bed as soon as she saw him, pointing at his uniform and speaking rapidly in her language. Jake had started wearing a translator device, but he could only pick up scattered words. "Guardian," she said again in English then, switched back to her own tongue. The translator caught fragments. Ancient, protector, return. "I don't understand," Jake said slowly. "What do you mean by guardian?" The alien looked frustrated. She held up her hands and began drawing shapes in the air, as if trying to show him something he could not see. Her movements were precise and deliberate, like she was copying something from memory. Dr. Alex Carter chose that moment to walk into the medical bay. The xenorchaeologist had arrived on the morning supply run, called in by Commander Park to help with the translation problem. He took one look at the shapes the alien was drawing and stopped dead in his tracks. Where did she learn those symbols? Alex asked, his voice tight with excitement. What symbols? Jake replied. She's just waving her hands around. No, look closer. Alex pulled out his tablet and showed Jake a series of geometric patterns. These are rubbings I took from ruins on Kepler-4, the same shapes she's drawing in the air. Jake compared the tablet to the alien's movements. The patterns matched perfectly. The girl saw what Alex was showing and became even more excited. She pointed at the tablet, then at Jake's uniform, then back at the tablet. She recognizes your research, Jake said. That's impossible. These ruins are over 30,000 years old. No known civilization was spacefaring at that time. Alex approached the alien carefully. Do you know what these symbols mean? The alien nodded vigorously. She took Alex's tablet and began touching the screen, rearranging the symbols into new patterns. As she worked, the translator started picking up more of her words. First guardians, the device said in its mechanical voice. Long time past, protected all worlds, fought the darkness. Alex's eyes went wide. The first guardians? Is that what your people call them? The alien nodded again. She pointed at Jake's eagle patch, then drew the same symbol on the tablet screen. Around it, she added the geometric patterns from Alex's research. The completed image looked like a star map, with the eagle at its center. My people remember, she said, her English getting clearer with practice. Stories passed down through generations. The first guardians marked safe worlds with this sign. She touched Jake's uniform patch. When darkness came, guardians fought, saved many worlds. Then they disappeared. What kind of darkness? Jake asked. The alien's face grew. Pale, void seekers. They eat light, eat life, eat everything. Leave only empty space behind. Alex was frantically taking notes on his tablet. This matches legends from a dozen different worlds. Ancient protectors who fought some kind of cosmic threat, then vanished. He looked up at Jake. But why does she think you're connected to them? The alien reached for Jake's hand and placed it flat against the tablet screen. The moment his skin made contact, the symbols began to glow softly. Jake jerked his hand back in surprise, but the glow remained for several seconds before fading. The symbols respond to human touch, Alex breathed. I've studied these ruins for 5 years, and they've never done that before. What does it mean? Jake asked. It means, the alien said quietly, that humans are the children of the first guardians. The stories say they would return when darkness came again. Before anyone could respond, the station's emergency alarms began blaring. Commander Park's voice echoed through the corridors. All hands to stations. We have multiple contacts dropping. Out of hyperspace. Large formation, unknown configuration. Jake ran to the nearest communications terminal and linked into the station's sensor array. His blood went cold as the data streamed across his screen. 27 ships had appeared at the edge of the system, but they were unlike anything in his database. The vessels were completely black, seeming to absorb sensor beams instead of reflecting them. The alien girl appeared beside him, moving faster than her injuries should have allowed. She looked at the sensor readings, and her face went completely white. They followed me, she whispered. The Void Seekers found me. Those are the things you were talking about? Jake asked. She nodded, tears forming in her violet eyes. My ship was part of a research fleet. We were studying Guardian ruins on the edge of our space when they attacked. Everyone else ... double quotes, she shuddered. They don't just kill. They make things stop existing. Alex joined them at the terminal, studying the sensor data. Their ships are showing impossible readings. It's like they're not entirely in our dimension. Commander. Park's voice came over the intercom again. Morrison, get up here. We need our communications expert. Jake looked at the alien girl. What's your name? Zara, she said. Zara Tellenth of the 3rd Exploration Fleet. Zara, I need you to tell me everything you know about these Void Seekers. How do they fight? What are their weaknesses? The first Guardians were the only ones who could hurt them, Zara replied. Normal weapons pass right through their ships. But Guardian technology. She touched his uniform patch again. Guardian technology could make them bleed. Jake felt a chill run through him. And you think humans have access to this Guardian technology? The symbols respond to your touch. The ruins wake up when humans are near. Your people carry the Guardian mark on their uniforms. Zara gripped his arm. If the stories are true, if humans really are the inheritors, then you might be the galaxy's only hope. The emergency alarms grew louder, and Jake could hear running footsteps in the corridors outside. Through the medical bay's small window, he could see the stars being blotted out by massive dark shapes moving closer to the station. I'm just a communications officer, Jake said. I monitor radio signals and fix broken equipment. I'm not some cosmic guardian. Zara looked at him with those ancient, knowing eyes. The first Guardians were ordinary people too, until the moment they chose to stand against the darkness. The symbols on your uniform, the way the ancient technology responds to humans, the timing of our meeting, none of this is coincidence. Alex was still staring at his tablet, where the Guardian symbols continued to pulse faintly. Jake, I think she might be right. The evidence is all here. Humans appearing just as these Void Seekers return. Ancient technology, awakening across. The galaxy, the symbolic connections. We need to get to the command center, Jake said. If those things are as dangerous as Zara says, Commander Park needs to know what we're really dealing with. As they left the medical bay, Jake caught his reflection in the corridor window. The small eagle on his uniform seemed different somehow, more significant than it had ever been before. Maybe Zara was right. Maybe some things were not coincidence. Maybe it was time for the Guardians to return. The command center buzzed with activity when Jake, Alex, and Zara arrived. Commander Park stood at the main display, watching the approaching fleet of black ships. Her face was calm, but Jake could see the tension in her shoulders. Report, she said without turning around. 27 hostile vessels confirmed, reported Lieutenant Maria Santos from the sensor station. They're not responding to any communication attempts. Their ships are showing energy signatures I've never seen before. Jake took his position at the communications console and immediately started scanning all frequencies. Static filled his headset, but underneath it he could hear something else. A low humming sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Commander, Zara said quietly, you need to evacuate the station. Those ships belong to the Void Seekers. They don't take prisoners. Who exactly are these Void Seekers? Park asked. Alex stepped forward with his tablet. According to Miss Tellenth and my archaeological research, they're an ancient enemy. They consume entire star systems, leaving nothing behind. The only force that ever stopped them were beings called the First Guardians. And you think humans are connected to these Guardians? The evidence suggests it, Alex replied. Ancient. Technology responds to human touch. The symbols match what we find on human military insignia. The timing of their return coinciding with human expansion into space. Commander Park studied the approaching fleet. Even if that's true, we're just 13 people on a research station. What are we supposed to do against 27 warships? Before anyone could answer, the Void Seeker fleet opened fire. The shots were unlike anything Jake had ever seen. Instead of energy beams or projectiles, they fired something that looked like tears in space itself. Dark lines stretched across the void, reaching toward the station. Evasive maneuvers, Park ordered, but there was nowhere for the station to go. The first dark beam struck the station's outer ring. Jake expected to feel an impact, hear alarms, see damage reports flooding in. Instead, the section simply stopped existing. No explosion, no debris, no energy signature. One moment it was there, the next it was gone, leaving a perfectly smooth gap in the station's structure. "They're not destroying us," Zara said, her voice filled with horror. "They're unmaking us, piece by piece." Another beam lanced out from the Void Seeker fleet. This one struck the station's communications array, erasing it from reality. Jake's console went dead, cutting off all contact with the outside universe. "We need help," Commander Park said. "Morrison, get word to Defense Command. Tell them we're under attack by an unknown force." "Communications are down," Jake replied. "The array is gone." "Then we use the emergency transmitter." Jake checked his backup systems. Everything was functional, but as he started to send a distress signal, something strange happened. New displays began appearing on his console, showing readouts he had never seen before. Ancient symbols scrolled across his screens, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. "What's happening to your equipment?" Alex asked, leaning over Jake's shoulder. "I don't know. These systems weren't here 5 minutes ago." Jake touched one of the new displays, and it responded immediately. Information flooded his mind. Star, charts, energy patterns, tactical data. Somehow, he understood all of it. Zara moved to stand beside him. "Guardian technology is awakening. The station must be built on an ancient site." "That's impossible," Commander Park said. "We surveyed this system thoroughly before establishing the outpost. The first Guardians hid their installations well," Zara explained. "They only activate when the Void Seekers return." Jake's hands moved across the new controls without conscious thought, as if he had been trained to use them his entire life. The station's main display changed, showing tactical information about the Void Seeker ships. For the first time, he could see their weaknesses. "Their ships exist partially outside normal space," he said, the knowledge flowing through him. "That's why conventional weapons can't hurt them. But Guardian technology operates on multiple dimensional levels." "Can we fight them?" Park asked. Jake studied the readouts. "This station has defensive capabilities I never knew about. But activating them—" He paused, feeling the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. "Once we use Guardian weapons, there's no going back. Every Void Seeker in the galaxy will know we're here." Another dark beam struck the station, removing the entire medical bay from existence. Dr. Ross and 2 technicians who had been inside simply vanished along with it. "They're already here," Commander Park said grimly. "If we can fight back, we have to try." Jake placed his hands on the Guardian controls. The moment his skin made contact, the station transformed around them. Walls became transparent, revealing hidden weapon systems that had been dormant for millennia. The floor beneath their feet pulsed with energy conduits that led to devices built into the station's very foundation. "My God," Alex whispered. "The entire station is built on a Guardian weapons platform." "Not built on," Zara corrected. "Built into." The first Guardians hollowed out asteroids and moons, turned them into hidden fortresses. Your people chose this location because it felt right, not knowing they were drawn to an ancient stronghold. Jake felt the weapon systems coming online. Particle beams that could punch through dimensional barriers. Shield generators that could deflect void energy. Sensor arrays that could track ships moving between realities. All of it waiting for someone with the right genetic markers to activate it. "Jake," Commander Park said, "are you sure you know how to use these systems?" "No," he admitted, "but somehow I understand them anyway." The Guardian weapons fired for the first time in 30,000 years. Beams of pure white energy lanced out from hidden emplacements around the station, striking the Void Seeker ships. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the enemy vessels began to shimmer and solidify, pulled fully into normal space. "You're hurting them," Zara said, wonder in her voice. "The Guardian weapons are forcing them into our dimension." Jake fired again, this time targeting the lead ship. The white beam struck its hull, and the vessel simply came apart, its dark armor. No longer able to protect it. Debris scattered into space. The first time Jake had seen a Void Seeker ship leave anything behind when it died, but their victory was short-lived. The remaining enemy ships began to retreat, moving back toward the edge of the system. As they withdrew, Jake felt something like a voice in his head. Not words, but emotions. Surprise, anger, recognition. "They know what we are now," Zara said. Quietly, the Void Seekers remember the Guardian weapons. They'll be back, and they'll bring more ships. Commander Park surveyed the damage to the station. They had lost 3 sections and 5 crew members, but they had also proven that the enemy could be fought. "How many more Guardian sites are there?" she asked. Alex consulted his research files. "I've cataloged ruins on 17 worlds and human. Space, if they're all like this. Then humanity has inherited the largest military network in galactic history," Jake finished. "But do we have enough people who can activate it?" Zara looked at him with those ancient violet eyes. "The stories say that when the darkness returns, the Guardians will rise to meet it. All of them. Your people don't know it yet, but every human carries the potential. The question is whether they'll answer the call." Jake stared at the tactical display, watching the Void Seeker fleet disappear into hyperspace. Somewhere out there, more enemy ships were already moving toward human space. The galaxy's deadliest predators had returned, and now they knew their ancient enemies had returned as well. The war that had ended 30,000 years ago was about to begin again, and this time, humanity would have to finish what the first Guardians had started. 2 weeks after the first attack, Jake barely recognized himself in the mirror. Dark circles surrounded his eyes from sleepless nights spent learning Guardian systems. His hands had permanent calluses from operating controls that responded to touch and thought. The eagle patch on his uniform seemed to glow with its own light now, though he knew that was impossible. Reports flooded in from across human space. Guardian sites were awakening on dozens of worlds, just as Zara had predicted. Ancient weapons platforms hidden in moons and asteroids came online when humans touched their controls. Military bases built on old ruins suddenly displayed rooms, full of technology that had never been there before, but the Void Seekers were responding too. Their attacks grew bolder and more coordinated. They had destroyed 3 colonies and 2 military outposts in the past week. Each time, they left nothing behind but empty space where planets had once orbited their suns. Jake stood in what used to be the communications room, but was now the Guardian Command Center. The walls displayed tactical information from across the galaxy. Red dots marked Void Seeker positions. Blue dots showed active Guardian sites. Yellow dots marked human colonies under threat. "Status report," Commander Park said as she entered the room. Lieutenant Maria Santos looked up from her new position at the tactical console. 17 Guardian sites are fully operational. Another 23 are partially active. The Void Seekers have pulled back to form a perimeter around the core systems. "They're not retreating," Zara said from her station. "They're preparing for a major assault." This is how they fought the first Guardians. Probe attacks followed by overwhelming force. Jake studied the enemy positions on the main display. "How long do we have?" "Days, maybe hours," Zara replied. "Once they mass their full fleet, no single Guardian site will be able to stop them." The door opened and Sergeant Rick Coleman entered, followed by Captain Sam Hughes. The captain had arrived 3 days ago with a small defense fleet, but his ships were useless against Void Seeker weapons. Instead, he had been helping coordinate the Guardian network. "The good news," Captain Hughes said, "is that we're not alone. Guardian sites across the galaxy are reporting contact with other species. The technology is reaching out to anyone who opposes the Void Seekers. How many allies do we have?" Commander Park asked. 47 species have confirmed Guardian. "Site activations," Hughes replied. "The Kethver, the Zephyrians, even the Crystalline Collective." It seems the first Guardians prepared for this day across the entire galaxy. Jake felt a strange satisfaction at the news. The Guardian network was not just human technology. It was a gift to all life in the galaxy. The first Guardians had not just protected one species, but had given every civilization the tools to protect itself. A new alarm sounded, different from the station's normal alerts. The Guardian systems were detecting something massive approaching. Hyperspace jump points throughout human territory. "They're coming," Zara said, her voice barely above a whisper. The main display filled with red dots as Void Seeker fleets emerged from hyperspace at 17 different locations simultaneously. Each fleet contained hundreds of ships, far more than they had faced before. "We can't fight them all," Maria said, staring at the overwhelming numbers. "We don't have to," Jake replied, his hands moving across the Guardian controls. "The network is designed to coordinate attacks across multiple systems. We can link every Guardian site together." As he spoke, new connections appeared on the display. Lines of light stretched between Guardian sites, creating a web of communication and shared power. Jake could feel the network responding to his thoughts, connecting him to humans and aliens across the galaxy who are operating similar systems. The sensation was overwhelming. Suddenly, he was not just Jake Morrison on Kepler Station, but part of something vast and ancient. He could sense Guardian operators on distant worlds, all of them linked together in a network of shared purpose. "Jake," Commander Park said, "your vitals are spiking. Are you all right?" "I can hear them," Jake said, wonder in his voice. "Every Guardian site in the galaxy. We're all connected now." Through the network, Jake felt the Void Seeker assault begin. The enemy attacked Guardian sites with coordinated precision, trying to overwhelm the defenses before they could respond. But they had not expected the network to be fully operational. Guardian weapons fired in perfect synchronization across dozens of star systems. Ships that attacked one site found themselves targeted by weapons platforms light years away. The Void Seeker's greatest advantage, their ability to phase between dimensions, became useless when Guardian sensors could track them across multiple realities. But the enemy adapted quickly. They began targeting the network connections themselves, trying to isolate Guardian sites from each other. Several nodes went dark as Void Seeker ships overwhelmed local defenses. "We're losing sites," Rick reported from his position. "The network is fragmenting." Jake closed his eyes and reached deeper into the Guardian systems. There had to be something more, some final protocol that the first Guardians had prepared for this moment. He felt his consciousness expanding, touching ancient memories stored in the network's core dot, and then he found it. The first Guardians didn't just fight the Void Seekers, Jake said, his voice distant and strange. They studied them, learned what they were and why they existed. "What are they?" Zara asked. Jake accessed memories that were not his own, knowledge preserved for thousands of years in the Guardian network. "They're not evil. They're sick. The Void Seekers were once like us, creators, builders, dreamers. But something went wrong. They became addicted to destruction, unable to create anything new. They consume because they've forgotten how to build." "How does that help us?" Commander Park asked. "Because the first Guardians found a cure," Jake replied. "Not just weapons to fight them, but a way to heal them, to remind them what they used to be." The Guardian Network responded to Jake's understanding, revealing protocols that had been hidden for millennia. Weapon systems transformed into something else entirely, not destructive, but reconstructive. Technology designed not to kill, but to restore. "Jake, what are you doing?" Captain Hughes asked as new systems came online across the galaxy. "What the first Guardians always intended," Jake said. "Not just to fight the darkness, but to turn it back into light." The Void Seeker ships that had been attacking Guardian sites suddenly stopped firing. Their dark hulls began to shimmer and change, as if remembering what they had been before corruption took hold. Some ships continued their attacks, but others began to retreat, their crews struggling with returning memories of who they used to. "It's working," Zara said, amazement in her voice. "Some of them are remembering." But the victory was not complete. The largest Void Seeker fleet was still approaching Earth, and Jake could sense that these ships were different. Older, more corrupted. They had been dark for so long that they might be beyond saving. "The core fleet is almost at Earth," Maria reported. 2,000 ships, all heading to the Sol system. Jake felt the weight of destiny settling on his shoulders. The first Guardians had prepared for this moment, but they had not lived to see it. Now it was up to him and every other human who had accepted the Guardian legacy to finish what their predecessors had started. "Send a message to all Guardian sites," Jake said. "Tell them we're going to end this, all of it, today." The final battle was about to begin. The Sol system had never seen so many ships at once. The Void Seeker fleet stretched across space like a dark cloud, 2,000 vessels of pure destruction heading straight for Earth. But they were not alone. Ships from 47 different species had gathered to make their final stand, all of them guided by the Guardian network that Jake now commanded. Jake stood in the center of Kepler Station's command room. His consciousness spread across the entire galaxy through the ancient network. He could see through the sensors of Guardian sites on hundreds of worlds, feel the thoughts of operators both human and alien, all of them connected by technology older than recorded history. "All Guardian sites report ready," Commander Park said. Though her voice seemed to come from very far away, Jake nodded, his attention focused on the approaching enemy fleet. Through the network, he could sense the Void Seekers' intentions. They planned to consume Earth's sun first, turning the entire solar system into empty void. From there, they would spread outward until every star in the galaxy was extinguished. "Begin the restoration protocol," Jake said. Across the galaxy, Guardian weapons fired in perfect coordination. But these were not the destructive beams they had used before. The new weapons sent waves of pure creation energy toward the Void Seeker ships, designed to remind them of what they had once been. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Hundreds of enemy ships stopped their advance as their crews struggled with returning memories. Jake could feel their confusion through the network. Beings who had spent millennia consuming and destroying suddenly remembering what it felt like to build and create. But the core ships of the fleet, the oldest and most corrupted, pressed on toward Earth. Their hulls absorbed the restoration energy without effect, too far gone to remember their original nature. "The elder ships are not responding," Zara reported from her station. "They have been dark too long." Jake reached deeper into the Guardian network, searching for answers in the memories of the first Guardians. What he found surprised him. The original Guardians had faced the same problem, and their solution had been both simple and profound. "Open communication channels to all ships," Jake ordered. "Jake, what are you doing?" Captain Hughes asked. "Something the first Guardians never tried," Jake replied. "They fought the Void Seekers as enemies. But what if we treat them as patients instead?" The communication arrays of every Guardian site in the galaxy focused on the approaching fleet. Instead of threats or demands, Jake sent something else entirely. An invitation. "Void Seekers, Jake broadcast on all frequencies. "We know what you were before the darkness took you. We know you were builders, creators, dreamers like us. They, Guardian Network has preserved those memories. We offer them back to you freely." The response was immediate and violent. The elder ships fired their void weapons with increased fury, trying to silence Jake's words. But other ships in the fleet began to slow, their crews listening despite themselves. "We do not ask you to surrender," Jake continued. "We ask you to remember. The Guardian Network contains the history of your species from before the corruption. Your art, your music, your literature. Everything you created before you. Learned to destroy." More ships stopped firing. Jake could sense the internal battles raging aboard the Void Seeker. Vessels as crew members fought between their programmed need to consume and their awakening memories of creation. The elder ships pressed their attack on Earth, but now they faced opposition from their own fleet. Ships that had remembered their true nature turned their weapons on their corrupted companions, trying to protect the world that had offered them redemption. "It's working," Alex said from his position at the sensor array. "The fleet is fighting itself." But the elder ships were too powerful and too numerous. Despite the defection of nearly half the fleet, they continued toward Earth with enough firepower to destroy the entire solar system. Jake realized that words alone would not be enough to stop them. "All Guardian sites, prepare for final protocol," Jake announced. "What final protocol?" Commander Park asked. Jake accessed the deepest levels of the Guardian Network, finding instructions left by the first Guardians for this exact moment. The original Guardians built the network not just to fight the Void Seekers, but to replace them if necessary. Every Guardian site can transform itself into a beacon of creation, spreading life instead of consuming it. "Jake, the energy requirements for that would be enormous," Captain Hughes warned. "It could burn out every Guardian site in the galaxy." "Then we build new ones," Jake replied. The network was always meant to grow, to spread from one generation to the next. The first Guardians gave us the tools. Now we have to use them. Jake initiated the final protocol. Across the galaxy, Guardian, sites began to transform. Weapons platforms became Genesis devices, capable of creating new worlds instead of destroying old ones. The ancient network prepared to birth stars instead of extinguishing them. The elder Void Seeker ships fired everything they had at Earth, but their void beams met walls of pure creation energy. Instead of destroying the planet, their weapons were converted into raw material for new life. The darkness they projected became light. Their destruction became construction. Jake felt the network reaching its limits. The transformation was using more power than the ancient systems could handle. One by one, Guardian sites began to overload and shut down. But their sacrifice was creating something beautiful. New stars ignited where void energy had tried to create. Emptiness. Planets formed from the raw matter that destructive weapons had tried to erase. Life began where death had been intended. The elder ships, seeing their ultimate weapons turned into tools of creation, finally understood what they had lost. Their crews, faced with the beauty of worlds being born instead of destroyed, remembered what they had been before the corruption took hold. One by one, the remaining Void Seeker ships powered down their weapons. Their dark hulls began to change, becoming silver and bright as their crews chose creation over consumption. Jake collapsed as the network finally overloaded. His connection to the galaxy-wide system severed. But through the observation windows of Kepler Station, he could see the results of their sacrifice. The Sol system was surrounded by new stars, each one a beacon of hope for the future. "Status report," Commander Park said as medical teams rushed to check on Jake. "The Void Seeker fleet has surrendered," Zara reported, wonder in her voice. "They're requesting permission to help rebuild the worlds they destroyed." Jake smiled weakly as Dr. Ross checked his vital signs. How many Guardian sites are still operational? 17%, Alex replied. But they're already beginning to rebuild themselves. The network is designed to grow. Through the window, Jake watched as former Void Seeker ships worked alongside. Vessels from dozens of species to construct new space stations around the newborn stars. The galaxy's greatest destroyers had become its newest builders. The first Guardians would be proud, Zara said. Standing beside Jake's medical bed, Jake looked down at the eagle patch on his uniform. It no longer glowed with ancient power, but it carried something more important now, the promise of a future where guardianship meant nurturing life rather than fighting enemies. The war was over, but the real work was just beginning. Across the galaxy, humans and aliens worked together to rebuild what had been lost and create what had never existed before. The Guardian network spread to new worlds, operated by new species, all united in the simple belief that creation was. Stronger than destruction. Jake Morrison had started as a simple communications officer monitoring empty space. He had become the bridge between humanity's past and the galaxy's future, proving that sometimes the greatest victories came not from defeating your enemies, but from helping them remember who they used to be.